Tensions flaring in the Middle East yesterday with renewed attacks putting the fragile ceasefire on even shakier ground. The United States and Iran trading shots in the Strait of Hormuz as the U.S. started its effort to help vessels travel through that key waterway. The head of the U.S. Central Command says Iran launched cruise missiles, drones, and small boats at civilian ships under the U.S. military's protection, and the U.S. fired back, sinking 6 small Iranian boats. Washington says they were IRGC vessels, and Tehran says they carried civilians, killing several of them. President Trump said Iran had, quote, taken some shots at unrelated nations, including a South Korean cargo ship, which caught fire yesterday after an explosion in the strait. Also, the UAE says its air defenses engaged multiple missiles and drones fired by Iran, sparking a fire at a critical oil refinery as alert systems sounded across the country for the first time since the ceasefire began. 2 Emirati government officials tell MS Now the UAE is, quote, preparing a severe retaliatory response against Iran, which has not commented officially on those attacks. As the truce is being tested this morning, both sides are speaking out. President Trump warned Iran its forces would be, quote, blown off the face of the earth if they attempt to target U.S. ships in the strait. Iran's foreign minister, meanwhile, wrote on social media, the events in the waterway make clear there is no military solution to a political crisis, adding both the U.S. and the UAE should, quote, be wary of being dragged back into a quagmire. So, Richard Haass, it doesn't sound much like a mini war to a lot of people who are watching, to a lot of the Gulf states who are bearing the brunt of the attacks from Iran, to this exchange of fire, it appears, in the Strait of Hormuz. What's your assessment of how shaky the ceasefire really is at the moment?
Well, it's not a ceasefire. You have not just the activities of the last 24 hours. We have a blockade in place. That's an act of war, the last I checked. Iran tries to control navigation through the strait. On the other hand, it's not all-out hostilities. So it's not all-out war. It's not a ceasefire. It's certainly not peace. And what I think it shows you, Willie, that unless this does begin to move in the direction of peace through diplomacy, this sort of thing is going to happen. And when it does happen, to keep it limited is going to become more and more difficult. So you can use the word fragile, tenuous, brittle, choose your adjective. But this is one of those situations that I think if diplomacy does not gain a lot of momentum, we're inevitably going to have not just days like yesterday, but it's going to escalate. And someone's going to attack the energy infrastructure of a country. Then there's going to be retaliation. Then we're off to the races. So that's when a crisis becomes a catastrophe. So the message I take from this is urgency. We've got to get this, try to move ahead diplomatically, because this is not a stable situation.
You know, Michael, Donald Trump keeps suggesting that this is the beginning of the end, that we're close to peace. But if Churchill said this is not the beginning of the end, this is just the end of the beginning, we're not even at the end of the beginning. It looks like we're starting all over at square one, where, again, the Iranians are accusing the United States and the UAE and others of provoking, and the United States is doing the same thing. It looks like, again, and I do not care to quote Iranian officials, but there is no military solution right now, it seems, to this political crisis. This administration is going to have to figure out how to change regimes, which doesn't look like it's going to happen, or they're going to have to sit down and make a deal to keep the strait open.
Yeah, and then there are the unforeseen events. I mean, you just mentioned these IRGC fast boats. This has been the real thorn in the side of a U.S. blockade. These boats can attach limpet bombs, they can open fire with automatic weapons and so on. What if these boats really do something bad, like sink an American warship, right? The chance of escalation then increases dramatically, Joe. And, you know, the Israelis, if you read the Israeli press, they're still gunning. They want to go all in again. They want to start bombing again, right? The U.S. does not. Sources in the DoD tell me we're running low on critical munitions. We fired the bulk of our PrISM missiles, which are like the upgraded versions of ATACMS, within the first few days of this conflict. You know, this is very concerning for people who watch Asia Pacific, because if now would be the moment that Beijing would choose to do something provocative in Taiwan, would we have the kit to defend another ally there? But it seems clear Donald Trump wants to de-escalate. He wants this thing to be over. He's declared victory. He says the war is over. This is now a mini war. He's using all kinds of Orwellian euphemisms. But again, we still have a naval blockade. That is an act of war. The Iranians see themselves as not having lost this thing, perhaps even having won it simply by staring us down. They're playing hardball. They do not want to capitulate in the way that Donald Trump seems to demand. His great fear, as he's repeated oftentimes, is that he doesn't want to do a JCPOA 2.0. He doesn't want to be seen as Barack Obama. Right? So much of his presidency has been the antithesis of what Obama did. But this, analysts I talk to say this is where we're tending now, right? We're going to have some diplomatic accord that is very similar to that which we had a decade ago.
100%.
Yeah. The problem for Donald Trump right now is that would seem like a very good deal. Having an Obama-style deal would seem like a very good deal to most people around him to stop this war. Of course, I don't know how he does that politically after... Well, he's of course attacked George W. Bush and Jimmy Carter for both being weak. He's in the combination of a crisis of both of those. Attacked Barack Obama for doing a deal that actually the United States seems to have been in a much better position there than we are right now, as far as keeping Iran from breaking out nuclear-wise. But Mike.